Disclaimer. My opinions are just opinions, even if it's knocking on someone else's views. No matter what you may think I've said, just know that I want a world where people, no matter what color, sexuality, gender identity, religion, or politics, can thrive and prosper without impeding or intruding on each other by restricting freedom of speech, expression, and just being. I believe many of us have the same goal in mind, but due to different perspectives, our paths tend to clash without realizing we share the same goal. The day I stop putting this disclaimer in front of my video is the day I lose myself in what I am fighting for, and I rely on all of you to call me out for it if that day comes. Enjoy the video. Hi, my name is Neon, and I will be discussing the trend you will find on TikTok or anywhere else videos are shared. This trend consists of teenagers or even young adults faking certain mental disorders such as Tourette's, autism, and the one this video is centered around, D.I.D, Dissociative Identity Disorder, or more commonly known as split personality disorder. I will not show clips of teenagers on TikTok making a fool of themselves by switching on a camera or showing off their alters and explaining their system and who fronts, because I feel it's morally wrong for me to relay these clips of these kids embarrassing themselves. There are many teenagers on TikTok mostly claiming they have D.I.D, and I am here to break the delusion and hopefully break anyone else's who think they have D.I.D. Let's first take a look at what exactly this mental disorder is. According to clevelandclinic.org, link in description, Dissociative Identity Disorder, D.I.D, is a mental health condition. People with D.I.D have two or more separate identities. These personalities control their behavior at different times. Each identity has its own personal history, traits, likes, and dislikes. D.I.D can lead to gaps in memory and hallucinations, believing something is real when it isn't. The website further states that D.I.D is very rare. The disorder affects between 0.01 and 1% of the population. It can occur at any age. Women are more likely than men to have D.I.D. According to psychiatry.org, link in description, D.I.D is associated with overwhelming experiences, traumatic events, and/or abuse that occurred in childhood. D.I.D was previously referred to as multiple personality disorder. Symptoms of D.I.D, criteria for diagnosis, includes the existence of two or more distinct identities or personality states. The distinct identities are accompanied by changes in behavior, memory, and thinking. The signs and symptoms may be observed by others or reported by the individual. Ongoing gaps in memory about everyday events, personal information, and/or past traumatic events. The symptoms cause significant distress or problems in social, occupational, or other areas of functioning. Now, I believe it's safe to say that we have a good grip on this mental disorder and what it is. Allow me to tell you my experience with this behavior, and I am stating right now that I do not have D.I.D and never had D.I.D, but I was once diagnosed with being a dumbass high schooler. When I was in my freshman year of high school, I stumbled upon the great illuminating abyss called social media. I describe it as great and illuminating because at the time it was bright and colorful, but now as an adult I see it as an abyss-like void that any young impressionable mind can get lost and molded in. This was 8 years ago, and even the teenagers then were faking D.I.D on social media. Yeah, this isn't a new thing. And as a young impressionable freshman in high school, my mind went down that path, trying to figure out who I was and wanted to be while discovering the concept of D.I.D. Bars. My information I received on D.I.D came from terrible sources who came in the form of other teenagers online who claimed to have it. This led me to believe at the time, only briefly thank God, that I had D.I.D. I didn't do it for attention. I thought it was a way to become someone else because I didn't like myself at the time. I didn't like the reflection in the mirror. I wanted an entirely new personality while still being me on the side to appeal to family. I made up a bunch of personalities. This did not help that I went to school and associated myself with other people who also thought they had this mental disorder along with other mental illnesses. I don't believe they all do this for clout or attention on social media. Some may, but I think they do it because they really believe they have this disorder, which is pretty scary. But luckily for me, I quickly grew out of it because, come on, it was stupid. I obviously was dealing with an identity crisis more than an actual identity disorder. I blame this brief period of stupidity on my immaturity in social media. The latter I blame deeply, But social media is an intangible entity that you cannot just simply punish or penalize for influencing impressionable young minds into doing or thinking stupid things. However, it's one you can avoid and consume less of. Now, I would like to talk to the viewer, potentially a type of viewer who thinks they have this very rare, off-chance mental disorder who just so happens to stumble upon this video. Let me guess your life. You are a teenager who lives in a first world country where you have access to the internet 24/7, you live with your parents or guardians who tend to your every need such as paying for the roof over your head, paying for bills, and paying for anything else you want, that being merchandise of your favorite animes, western cartoons, shows, or YouTube. You may have a job yourself to pay for some of this stuff, and if you do have a job, it isn't extensive labor. You may think it is. You certainly have a phone and have internet social groups where you contact online friends to discuss similar interests in animes, western cartoons, shows, or YouTube. I'm going to be saying this a lot. Most of your time you spend indoors roaming the internet and indulging in your favorite fandoms of animes, western cartoons, shows, or YouTube, idolizing fictional characters and real-life people. Also, you probably just recently discovered the concept of D.I.D. that is being glorified on social media. You are in a closed-knit bubble of a false reality that's a byproduct of a common living scenario, one I've stated previously and lived through, but let me sum it up with bullet points. First world country, live with parents or guardians who pay for everything, 24/7 internet access, typically stay indoors, and are infatuated with fandoms from animes, western cartoons, shows, or YouTube. Have an online social group of people who share similar interests as you. You just learned about D.I.D. from the internet. This is a scenario that is a recipe to make young teenagers think they have D.I.D. or a lot of other things. This bubble you live in, where you really don't have to worry about real-world responsibilities, makes it comfortable for you to think or imagine you have D.I.D. and start concocting personalities or alters out of the blue, based on certain fictional characters you love or even real-life people you idolize. If you are starting to believe you have an alter or alters that is based on a favorite fictional character of yours or real-life people or even an original character you made up, you do not. You are just a victim of this crazy scenario that I previously mentioned. You can admire fictional characters and real-life people, you can buy their merchandise and even cosplay as them, but you do not have D.I.D. You are you. And you must learn to love yourself instead of trying to escape yourself or reality by making up false personalities that you know are false and not actually fronting or taking over your body at certain times in the day. If you are still battling me on this and I haven't broken you yet, then run through these 3 tests for me that will surely shake your falsehood. Note, these tests are made by me and are not official medical tests to conclude if whether or not someone has D.I.D. Test number 1. Tell your family. Does your parent, guardian, or anyone else in your family know you actually have these alters? Or are you only exposing them to people who will never question you about them, like friends at school or online friends who probably are faking D.I.D. as well? I am confident to say that most of you are stuck in this awkward position where you preach that you have D.I.D., but no one in your family knows of it because you are probably scared that someone very close to you, such as a parent, guardian, relative, will call you out on your nonsense. Test number 2. Who diagnosed you? Was it a professional doctor or was it you yourself and your friends? If it's the latter, then I dare you to see a doctor and get professionally diagnosed. If you do not have medical resources due to financial troubles, then I suppose you're not qualified for this test, though it poses as a very significant test out of the 3. But if you do have access to medical care where you can easily schedule an appointment to see if you have D.I.D., then what's stopping you? Surely you want a paper confirming your diagnosis so that people like me can stop questioning your authenticity of your D.I.D. claims. Test number 3. Now this test is rather cruel, but it strikes at the problem that I believe is encouraging this faking behavior of mental disorders. Detach from social media for a year. Detach from your online friends, social media influencers who claim they also have D.I.D., and even friends at school, or at least the ones who encourage D.I.D. If you can go on a year doing this and come back as the same individual who claims they have D.I.D. with the same alters and everything, then I might consider believing you. Consider at least. Test number 3 can probably substitute for those who cannot fulfill test number 2 for whatever reason. I truly believe due to the circumstances of our generation, that being Generation Z. Teenagers are faking DID, or at least tricking themselves into thinking they have DID and many other things that are not up for discussion in this video, and I will save perhaps for another time. Social media, the internet, and the spread of false information. If we grew up in the time without the technology we so desperately cling to now, you wouldn't hear about anyone having DID along with other mental illnesses to the unlawful extent that these teens claim to have on TikTok. This is a good reason why you shouldn't allow your children to be raised by the internet, or at least completely influenced by it. And I understand the irony, or what you may deem as ironic, because this ain't even my real voice or name. I'm just playing as a character that is basically an alter ego. Playing an alter ego is different from faking DID. I don't claim to have gaps in my memory or black out as another person is driving the system. I know who I am at all times. Think of it like a Ziggy Stardust or Slim Shady thing. In conclusion, you probably don't have DID. Wake up. The grown-up world is coming very soon. It won't tolerate your delusions. Go deal with life. Stop making up foolishness to be shielded by. But most importantly, be you. Please, like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me if there is something I'm missing or wrong about. This isn't a one-way thing here. Thank you for watching. Pray to your gods. Good day, night.